Marriage is more. Marriage is much more than just love. Marriage is hard work, and it requires a commitment and a level of emotional maturity to work through the issues and make the marriage successful. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Let's just show this to your kids before they get married. I'm going to read you guys the question that I received that prompted today's topic and what we are going to be talking about. So the question is, my wife says she doesn't want kids. Whenever she explains why, the reason always comes from her trauma of how she grew up with her mom as a single parent, or that she's afraid of losing autonomy. She doesn't seem to understand that we are a team and that I won't leave all the responsibility on her shoulders. I'm not going anywhere, and I want to know that my relentless work is for a reason above money. I want to experience having a family. A family to her is me, her, and our dog. I see family as me, her, our dog, and kids. There are so many magical experiences I dream of experiencing someday as a father, and I know she would be an incredible mother, and I know I would be an incredible dad. How do I help her open up to have kids? In short, in answering this question and then using this as a jumping off point for a talking point and an important discussion to have. Unfortunately, in this circumstance and situation that's described in the question, unfortunately, it's too late. You married a woman who doesn't want kids. And this is a conversation that we need to have before marriage. And maybe they had that conversation, maybe they didn't. If they did, that's really going to set up the premise of where we're going today, that we become naive and think love is what's going to make the marriage work. And if we love each other, that's all we need. And, we'll figure those things out once we're married. Or you didn't have that conversation when you should have. And now it's after the fact and it's too late. And what this man wants to know is that if you pressure her, she will be resentful, angry, and she will be a terrible mother because she'll be doing it for all the wrong reasons. She won't be committed to it. And it's a stark reality that you don't have shared values, which is so common and a big issue and problem in marriages is not having shared values. So we thought this would be a great talking point, a common issue and problem in a marriage to use as a jumping off point and really gear this towards young adults who want to get married, both women and men. And of course, my message is for good men and for women who are married to or want to be married to a good man, and the dynamics and problems that exist between women and good men, and using this as a dose of reality that young adults need to consider and understand before getting married. And this perspective of showing this to your kids is the premise and foundation of what I want to talk about today, is that marriage is more. Marriage is much more than just love. Marriage is hard work, and it requires a commitment and a level of emotional maturity to work through the issues and make the marriage successful. That a successful marriage doesn't just happen. And the key ingredient for a marriage to work and be successful is not love. It's actually shared values, which is where we're going to get to later in the show. And marriage and the responsibility of it, and speaking from my own experience in this, marriage and the responsibility of it is not something that you can anticipate and understand until you actually go through it. In our humanness, we want to believe that it's a place where two people fall in love and they can work together because of that foundation of love to solve the problems and share in family and be best friends. And it's all based on love. However, the reality that we all know is that romantic love fades away. And once that romantic love fades away and you are married, the challenges in marriage start and the reality sets in. So the challenges that begin to come up in a marriage is just a natural part of life that sets that reality in, are financial responsibilities and financial challenges, having children, just all the stressors of life, a parent getting sick or a family member dying, challenges within our world and communities that can affect our home life. So all the challenges begin to happen as just a natural part of life. And what happens when you're married, that reality sets in, and eventually we get to a OS moment. What OS meaning fill in the blank of the S. What did I do? I never imagined that this is what marriage would be. I remember that moment for me. I was someone, a typical woman, who had my head buried in the sand. Had my head buried in the sand about the realities of marriage and the issues and challenges that were going to come up, that were coming up very quickly within the first year of marriage. And I was laughing with my mentor this morning as we were working through the outline of the episode for today I didn't realize I blamed him. I blamed him for making the issues and challenges shake up. And then I had a good aha moment in myself of, oh, no, Karen. The issues and challenge were already there and presenting themselves. I was just fortunate enough to be on a path 6 months, a year into my marriage, to have someone help me yank my head out of the sand and look at the issues that were happening, that were already building, and a big problem, and where that was going to lead the marriage if I didn't look at them and begin to work on them and address them and face them. So everybody has that OS moment when marriage is not the fantasy of what we thought it was going to be, and that reality sets in and the responsibility sets in. And that's important for young people to know, who marriage is important to them, and that's a path that they want to take in life. And can be much easier before getting married to go in with it eyes wide open, understanding the realities of life, understanding the realities of marriage, and letting go of the naivety that we have, that when we get married and our understanding of marriage, of what we believe, you want to let go of the naiveness that you have in this, that we all believe we're the ones. We're the ones that are going to make it. We're the ones that are truly in love. We are the exception. You don't understand. You don't understand the bond and the friendship that we have and how strong our love is. We all believe that. And it's going to be us against the world. That's the fantasy that we have. The reality of marriage, that can be a tough pill to swallow, but the reality of marriage is no one's really happy. But at best, they've learned to suppress their real feelings and hurts or resentment and seek to maintain the status quo and not rock the boat, to have to face the issues and kind of toe the line in that way. And how I can know that and say that is, unfortunately, as women, we are not happy in ourselves, meaning we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves. We don't know how to find our fulfillment within and spend our lives looking for the next box we need to check that we think is going to fulfill us and make us happy in life. And getting married and having children is a very, very, very common box that we want to check that we think is going to make us happy. And the problem is we never learn to be happy within ourselves and fulfilled and content within ourselves. And the natural dynamic, and speaking of a marriage with a woman and a good man, is that how the marriage is going to go and the success of the marriage is on our shoulders. It's up to us as women. In a marriage with a woman and a good man, the success of the marriage is up to the woman. And the reason for that is, I often explain, it's as if as women, we are the sun, and a good man and our kids and family are the earth, and revolve around our emotional state, that we set the tone. So if we're unhappy in ourselves and emotionally immature or emotionally fragile and moody, that's affecting the whole household. And the reality in that dynamic, when left unchecked and a woman doesn't work on herself to become happy and fulfilled in herself and outgrow our self-centeredness and selfishness and our need to be right, that in that framework, which is a sad reality of a marriage between a woman and a good man, is that a marriage is not a collaborative approach to making decisions and solving problems. Because as the wife and the woman, we always make ourselves right, and we have the say in the marriage. So the success in a marriage is our ability to adapt as women and to change and outgrow our self-centeredness, our need to be right, and our need to be in control. The funniest example to me that's a very, very big part of my reality and the courses that I teach, and this is when I get on a consultation with a woman who's very much more kind of a type A woman. You can tell she's calling the shots. It's up to her, and we'll talk through the course and well, I'm going to need to talk with my husband. And I internally laugh because I know at the end of the day, it's ultimately her decision, because she's going to do what she wants to do. And that's actually her back door, that if she doesn't want to do it, she's not going to do it. And it's really fascinating. Or more rare, but when a woman says, my husband doesn't, want to spend that money or doesn't want me to take the course, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that's how we operate in a marriage that prevents it from being a collaborative approach and making decisions. So that's why the success of a marriage is up to us, and it's our own inherent unhappiness in ourselves and unfulfillment in ourselves, that there are no happy marriages. Because for it to truly, truly be a happy marriage and being married to a good man, that's the framework, we have to be happy in ourselves. Good men are fundamentally happy in their perspective on life, in terms of they have a healthy outlook on life, they understand the reality, and they're problem solvers. They're problem solvers. Whereas as women, we are pain avoiders. And like I said earlier, want to bury our head in the sands and let it crumble and fall where it falls. And that makes us feel very bad about ourselves. It makes us very unfulfilled. It makes us feel like there's something always wrong. And that's our internal state. So whether that's overt or covert in the marriage, it doesn't matter, but that's a determining factor. A woman's own internal state of herself is a determining factor of the success and happiness of a marriage with a good man. Coming back to shared values, and again, the perspective of this being one that older adults might show their young adult children, it's imperative for a marriage to be successful, to be congruent on the big issues and life perspectives and the importance of them to you. So a marriage is doomed to fail without shared values. But what happens in our humanness is we get consumed. We get consumed with the idea that love is what is most important. But when the love fades, which is just the reality, and I can hear myself as a young person, but no, our love is not going to fade. You don't understand. We're different. We're different. That's what we hunker down in our youth and just natural immaturity that we have in those beginning adult stages of life. You have to know, no, the love really does. That romantic love fades away. And what's left is the character. What's left is the character of the person you've married and how they are going to view life and work through the issues and challenges. So you want to marry someone with shared values and marry someone who is a person of character and integrity. A person who is going to keep their word, a person who is who they say they are, a person who can show up with strength and emotional maturity to their best ability in the challenges and adversities of life. It's easier to tell if someone doesn't have character. It's easier to tell in the beginning and to assess if a person does not have character. A person who does not have character is emotionally fragile, embraces and gets lost in the drama of life, and lives in their victim stories of their past, their upbringing, and what has happened to them in their lives, and blaming outside circumstances for their issues and problems. You can know someone who is living in victim stories and is emotionally fragile in the face of life, has no capacity from that place for self-control and agency. And this is a wonderful way to see through a facade of what a person presents, especially women, the facade we present versus how are we actually handling life and what's our emotional state and how do we operate emotionally. So to determine if you have shared values with the person you're thinking of marrying and that they are a person of integrity and character, we're going to discuss 5 tough questions that you need to ask each other before getting married. And each of these questions are the biggest issues marriages run into and expose whether you have shared values in these issues, because this is an important foundation of the marriage. If you are not congruent on the big issues and on the shared values, and you don't have that as a foundation, the marriage is doomed to fail. And this is where our emotions can get the better of us, and we want to lean on love, and we'll ignore, bury our head in the sands, not address where we are not on the same page with shared values. Because we love each other, so it'll work out. We love each other and we will find a way to make it work. But that's a very naive perspective. These questions will also expose and flesh out red flags and whether this person is who you think they really are or not. So, getting into the 5 tough questions you need to ask each other before getting married. Number 1, do you want children or not? And how many Do you want children or not? And how many? You have to have a shared value of whether or not you want to have children and how important that is to you or not in life. And it seems kind of duh, but you want to find this out before marriage. You do not want to find this out after marriage. And you have to have the emotional maturity to know if you are not on the same page around this, then you do not want to get married to each other. Again, this is a place where we are naive to think we'll change the other person or they will change their mind. They just don't know yet that they want to have kids or don't want to have kids. And if you marry and you're not on the same page with this and someone wants kids and someone doesn't want kids, if you pressure and talk the person who doesn't want kids into having kids, they're going to be resentful and they will run from the responsibilities of parenthood and run from the responsibilities of being a parent and having kids. Another good question that falls underneath this that the man needs to ask the woman is, do you want to be a stay-at-home mom or do you want to work? And for some good men, and part of their values and faith and how they see a family and a marriage working is they want their wife to stay home with the kids. Or some men say we need both incomes and we need to find a way for it to work with you working. No right or wrong in that. Again, it comes down to values and what's important to a person. And these are just the things that need to be discussed. The second tough question you need to ask each other before getting married, really important. Number 2, how much debt do you have and why? How much debt do you have and why? And then really important, especially for good men to ask a woman, who do you believe is responsible for that debt? So what's your plan to get it paid off? Are you committed to that plan? Are you actively working it? And this fleshes out how important having a shared value around finances is so important because of the financial pressures that naturally get put on a marriage and the life events that come up that put financial pressure. And it's often something that we hide, especially as women, speaking from experience. And we hide it and we don't want to expose it because it's embarrassing or they won't like me or they won't want to marry me. So we hide it. So it's something you want to put on the table. And then under this is, are you open to being on a budget? Which, what's more important to you? Planning for the future or an immediate lifestyle? What's more important to you? You have to be on the same page around that before getting married. And if you are not, you're always going to be in conflict about money and you're not going to be able to work together when the financial pressures hit. Third tough question you need to ask each other before getting married. What is your political affiliation and how important is it to you? And getting it on the table. Each of your political affiliations. And this is especially important now in our ever-changing political landscape and how divisive it is and how divisive it can get at any point in time. And it's so polarizing. So I've heard plenty of stories of marriages being torn apart in recent years over political differences. I have a question in queue that someone sent in of, I voted for Trump and my wife wants to get divorced, and that has happened a lot. I've seen lots of stories around that. Even vice versa, I've seen it flipped as well. So marriages get torn apart because one person's liberal, one person's conservative. So it's important to flesh this out and also asking, how important is politics to you, or is it not relevant? And you don't mind that we have those differences. But if politics and a person's affiliation is important to them and it's a big part of their life, something they like to discuss and talk about, then if that's opposite of yours, you do not want to get married? Number 4, what are your religious and or spiritual beliefs, and how important are they to you in your life? And under this question, asking, is going to church important to you? Is celebrating religious holidays and being with your family at those times important to you? How strong is your faith? And how big of a priority is it to you in your life? Are you biblical? And how important is it to you to follow the biblical structure of marriage and not being naive? Again, this is a big one where love conquers all comes in, and we're naive thinking if we're different faiths and different religious values, we'll work it out. We love each other so much, we'll just work it out and we'll make it work. But this will become a wedge between you and the marriage, and there will be lots of conflict around different priorities and important things that will come up around religion and spiritual beliefs. And the 5th tough question that's important to ask each other before getting married: are you open to a prenuptial agreement? And I've included this one because we're talking about the necessity of character and emotional maturity in a marriage for it to work. And one of the best barometers to determine a person's intentions, especially a woman's intentions, and their emotional maturity, is to ask, are you open to a prenuptial agreement? Most good men can see the practicality in a prenuptial agreement. But you can know if a woman is marrying you and has noble intentions and isn't looking for a cash out if she's open to a prenup. And it is a huge red flag and will expose a person's character and their true intentions if they are not open to a prenup. And you will know that because they will get highly defensive and use it as a way to question your love and commitment to them. Like you don't trust me, and you don't really love me, and you don't have intentions of seeing this through if you're asking me for a prenup. And you have to know that is showing you a level of low character, a low level of emotional maturity, and that if they're not willing to sign a prenup, run, especially if you're a good man. So those are the 5 tough questions that you need to ask each other before getting married. And as we were going through these and coming up with them, we realized, of course, there could be a lot more. We talked about what are the questions you ask around sex, or living arrangements, or chores, or when your parents get older, are you the one that has committed or is agreeing to care for them and be a primary caregiver? How important is sports to you? Because a person might be a football fanatic and they're going to be watching football, or loves playing golf. And you want to know those things, because the key is you want to be able to dance together by having a foundation of shared values, but also know the potential challenges that might come up. And how are you going to work together? And this exposes the character of a person. So let me know in the comments what questions you would ask looking back and in hindsight. And I especially was curious about what's the question you ask around sex and shared values around sex, because that's one of the number 1 or number 2, other than money, of the biggest issue that comes up in a marriage. So we were kind of like, what would you ask? And decided to stick with the 5 that we had, but that's a big one too. So I would really like to know your thoughts of what's the concise, direct question you would ask to flesh the values out around sex and intimacy in marriage, and coming to an agreement and being on the same page around that. So in wrapping up, I want to talk a little bit first to young women who might watch this, and then young men who might watch this, that marriage is important to you. Speaking to the young women first, these are the things I wish I would have known. And my channel is not to make women bad or wrong. It's to expose the challenges and limitations that we have in our wiring, and that as humans, we all have shortcomings, we all have flaws. And one of our shortcomings and flaws as women on a spectrum is that we have a selfishness. We have a need to be right. We have a need to be in control. And we can easily gain control and shape and manipulate a good man and strip him of who he is as a man because of our selfishness and only being able to think of ourselves. And what most importantly I talk on the channel is our unhappiness in ourselves as women, meaning we never learn to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, to be fulfilled from the inside out, and not looking for something to make us happy in life, that is our responsibility. And it's imperative for us as women in a relationship or a marriage with a good man that we learn to be happy within ourselves, or we will crush and destroy a good man because we inevitably end up blaming them and making them the problem for why we are so unhappy in ourselves. And that's what I wish that I would have known as a young adult woman. And I don't know that I would have listened because I was very stubborn and very rebellious, and I would have blown it off. But there are special young adults out there who can learn from older adults and their mistakes and the things that they wish they would have known. And it's important you say, I'm not going to be that woman. It's important to say and see how you know you have these traits in yourself, not making yourself wrong or bad. And what am I going to do to work on these and be a woman of integrity and character and flesh these things out in myself so that I'm self-aware and know myself and know my flaws and limitations so I can strengthen myself. Because I don't want to be a woman that destroys a good man and jumps into a marriage thinking he's going to make me happy, because it won't work. So this is about accepting, shining the light on the flaws and limitations we have as women on a spectrum to a degree, so that we're aware of those weaknesses in ourselves and can work on them and be the best we can be for ourselves, and then share in that with a good man. And that's what will make a marriage work, because a good man in his nature is responsible, hardworking, will value the marriage, value the responsibility that comes with it. And above all, his number one priority and motivation is for you to be happy and loved. But you first must make yourself happy in you and love yourself enough to flesh out and know the limitations in you, so you're bringing your best self to the table. And then you can have what I teach a marriage is really about between a good man and a woman, is having a dance in our differences, and that you are responsible for that happiness within yourself. That is the key ingredient to success in a marriage, along with the shared values we talked about today. For the young men who might listen to this, it's important to be aware of what I talk about, our limitations and flaws we have as women, so that you can go into a relationship or a marriage with a woman being objective and understanding those limitations and flaws, and learning to be strong in yourself and not vulnerable to our ability to be highly manipulative and to try to change you and overpower you and be the one in control, when you are strong and grounded in who you are as a good man and can understand and see the realities of a woman. Then you can learn to navigate them and not give your power away to them, thinking it's your responsibility to make her happy. You have to know it is not your responsibility to make a woman happy. It is her responsibility to make herself happy. And when you are clear in that, you can show up as the good man that you are and have healthy boundaries And a woman who's on the low end spectrum of what I talk about and the limitations and flaws we have as a woman will be able to dance with you and follow your lead and your natural ability to problem solve and be pragmatic and grounded in the realities of life. Whereas women, we're emotional and we want to make decisions emotionally and get swept away by our emotions and then use those to make you wrong and bad and try to control. But when you know that and you have a woman who's on the lower end of those limitations and flaws, she will be grateful for your strength and ability to stay strong in yourself and lead her. And she will still have, I say, temper tantrums and buck against your leadership. But if she's on that lower end, we'll learn to dance in that and not buck as much and respect you and be grateful to you for the boundaries you hold that allow her to be the best she can be in yourself. And when she's willing to take that responsibility on in herself and you're aware of the challenges, then that allows you to be the best in yourself by standing strong and firm in who you are and not giving that power away and not trying to make her happy, knowing that's her responsibility. And then she's empowered to do that for herself through your lead in that. But it's about understanding our differences and learning to dance in them and knowing we're never going to think and approach life the same because we're different as men and women. But we can learn to dance in those differences, which is what makes a marriage so beautiful, are the unique qualities that we have as women underneath our own limitations and weaknesses, and the unique qualities a good man has under his limitations and weaknesses, which is giving his power away to a woman and wanting to make her happy, which is a recipe for disaster in marriage. So I hope that that is helpful and that this episode might touch young people who marriage is important to them and need a roadmap of things that are important to understand in the realities of marriage and the realities of who we are as women and good men, so we can come together and have successful marriage in our society and culture. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.